Hey, what's up everyone? Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, all that stuff. It's the holidays. And as you can see, I've got my punch-out cabinet in the row of games, and that's because I am done. This is my last video blog. I'm very excited to do this one. I know it's been a while, and I haven't had a whole lot to update. I've been busy with this project, don't get me wrong, but I wanted to wait until I was at a point that I could call it finished. So that's where I'm at here. So if you remember in the last video blog, I had trouble saving scores with Super Punch-Out in particular. Punch-Out was working, but Super Punch-Out wasn't, and I had traced it to that one little RAM chip on the PCB on the board, and I was certain that that was the problem. Well, I finally got replacement chips, and I replaced it, and unfortunately in that process, I broke a couple of traces on the board, so I had to repair those. I did okay, that I replaced the traces. It wasn't the cleanest job I've ever done, but hey, it worked, and I fired everything up, and now Super Punch-Out is saving scores, so check that off the list. The other thing that I did was I rigged the cabinet up for streaming, and I did a little video on how that all works. I'll cut to that now. Okay, so I just finished rigging up this cabinet for my streaming and capture setup. And all of my cabinets are set up in a similar fashion, but Nintendo cabinets like this one are a little bit trickier, and I'll explain here. So we're looking at my coin door. Let me just open this up here. Okay. So right away looking here, you see I've actually got two inverter boards here, and these are my speakers. And I'm going to set my camera up and remove the control panel just to give you guys a better idea of what we're looking at here and how this all works. So let me do that real quick. Okay, so I removed the control panel so that you can see this all better. You can see the coin door is right here. So if I pulled out the coin door, it'd be gone. So hopefully that gives you a better angle. Let's just keep that open for now. So the reason why I've got all this stuff set up here is because Nintendo cabinets use an inverted signal. See, normally with any of my other games, I wouldn't need either of these boards here at all. Because it's just a normal video signal. But since Nintendo games and the monitors use an inverted signal, that complicates things a bit, because my stream setup will not accept an inverted signal. Particularly the OSSC and my FrameMeister and what have you, the colors get all washed out and things get real screwy. So I need to invert it before it can accept before it can enter the streaming setup. And so that's what this one here, this green board, that's a Mike's Arcade inverter. They work great. I mean, I could use the Sanyo, but I find that the Mike's Arcades work better going into my streaming setup. It's a more crystal clear image. And so that's why I've got that one mounted there. And so what happens with any of these games when I want to capture directly or stream them, and I guess you could go back and watch my video on that, but basically I have everything kind of at the coin door, so I don't have to go in the back of the cabinet. So this is my video signal here that goes to the monitor. Basically all I've done is I just tapped into it and extended it so that it runs all the way up to the coin door. So if I unplug this right now, the monitor, the lower monitor on my punch-out would go out, because that's what this signal is. It's the video signal going from the board to the monitor. And then on the other side here, right here, these two Molexes is my audio, because there's two channels to this game. There's two speakers, so left speaker, right speaker. And that's so that I can tap into the audio, and that can go right into my streaming setup. So it's just extensions of the audio and the video right up to the cabinet to make it easy. But the purpose of the inverter boards is, one, it needs to invert the signal to a normal video signal going into my capture setup. And then when the signal comes back to go to the monitor, it needs to be re-inverted so that it's an inverted video signal, which is what the monitor is looking for. So that's a long-winded way of explaining why I've got two inverters here. My Red Tent's set up the exact same way. It's the only way I can get it to capture a decent, actually work at all for that matter. And so basically what I would do if I had my capture set up right in front of me is I would start here with our video signal, and I would unplug this. Then I would grab this guy here. This is, I have these actually marked. So I don't know if you can see this. It says game in. I don't know if you can see that. There. So that's my game in, which is right here. This is the video coming directly from the board. So I would plug that in here. So now I've got the video signal going into the inverter. It's being inverted. And then this Molex here would go into my stream setup. So this would feed the signal into my capture, my streaming setup, my rig. And then from there, from that capture rig, it also has a video out because I need the video to go back into the monitor. And so on this side, this is for what goes back into the monitor. I would plug that into this harness here, and then that gets inverted, and here's our inverted out, or I guess you could say our re-inverted out. So I would plug that into my harness here, and then I would have a picture on the monitor now that looks correct. And then the audio is pretty straightforward. What happens with the audio is, as soon as, if I unplug one of these, I would lose that speaker. But that's okay because I use headphones. So ultimately, this does two things. One, it will feed the audio into my capture setup so everyone can hear the audio, but it would also prevent the speaker from functioning, because I want that, since I use a lavalier microphone, I don't want any sort of echo. So I use headphones for that reason. But I know it sounds complicated, but the only reason that it is that way is because of these inverter boards. And that's because of stupid Nintendo. If you ask me, it's a pain in the ass, and it adds a whole nother level of complexity to the setup. But if you eliminate those, it's very, very simple. But basically, that's how it works. I need to invert the video signal before it enters my stream and capture setup, and then I need to re-invert it before it goes back to the arcade monitor. So that's my setup. It looks complicated, but it really isn't. And I've got everything all labeled. But yeah, and Punch-Out is a 2-monitor game, but I only did the lower monitor because I would need a whole nother capture setup to do the upper monitor. So I'm just going to point a camera at the upper monitor, which is just statistics, your health, the opponent you're fighting, but all the actions on the lower monitor. So that's the one I want to capture. That's the one I'm most concerned with. But down the road, maybe I'll do another capture rig, but for now I'm just using the one. So it's just the lower monitor. But anyhow, long-winded way of it, hopefully explaining my setup here. So there you have it. So everything's all set up for capturing and streaming. So I'm excited to do that, to start doing that with this game. The last piece of the puzzle was getting the switcher to work. And unfortunately, I didn't get it working. There are 2 switchers that they make for this game, for Punch-Out and Super Punch-Out and arm wrestling and all that stuff. 2 main switchers that I know of. One's made by Vector Labs. That was the first one that I got. And another one's made by RiddledTV. And the Vector Lab one came first, and I wired everything all up, and the problem I was having at first was it wasn't doing hardly anything. It would partially work, it wouldn't switch between games, Super Punch-Out didn't work at all, and so I ended up sending that switcher back to have repaired or replaced. And Vector Labs is really good. Mike over there is really good with customer service, so kudos to him. But while I was waiting for that to be repaired, I picked up one of the RiddleTV switchers because it was a lot cheaper and simpler. The interface is a lot simpler than the Vector Labs one. It's just 2 pieces rather than 3. You just attach these little adapter cards, one to each board, and there's a little ribbon cable. It's very simple. So that was very appealing to me. And the RiddleTV one came out after the Vector Labs switcher. So part of me is also thinking, well, maybe since this is a later rendition of a switcher, that a lot of the kinks have been worked out. But anyway, so I get the RiddleTV switcher, and that one's giving me a problem. So let me explain what the issues are. With the RiddledTV switcher, everything was working. I was able to switch between games. The audio, everything sounded great, but I was getting this weird like ghosted image on, so like basically what you see on the upper monitor would be kind of overlaid on the lower monitor. So you kind of see what's going on up here, down here, and vice versa. It was very annoying. It was subtle, but it wasn't, and it was enough to really bother me. In fact, I did a detailed video on that, and I'll put a link in the description below. So you can check that out if you want. It's an unlisted video, but it shows exactly the issues that I was having. So I get so you remember that's the RiddledTV switcher. Now, the Vector Lab switcher, the one that wasn't working at all, that comes back. It's been repaired by Mike at Vector Labs. And so I get that all rigged up and everything works and I'm excited, everything's working. But the problem, and I wasn't having the same issue, I wasn't having that ghosted, that crosstalk issue that I was just talking about with the RiddledTV switcher. So everything's working, it's great, I'm excited. But the problem with that, with the Vector Lab switcher, is the audio. Now, this game has 2 channels, right? It has stuff coming out of one speaker and other stuff coming out of the other speaker. There's 2 channels, so it's kind of like a separated, almost like a stereo system. And it's really cool because you'll hear like the announcer coming out of one speaker, you'll hear music and sound effects coming out of another. It goes back and forth. So it's a really cool effect. But with the Vector Lab switcher, for whatever reason, they designed it so that both audio channels are combined. So you get all the sounds coming out of this speaker and all the sounds coming out of this speaker. It's like taking a mono signal and just pumping through 2 different speakers. You lose that separation. That's a big bummer for me. The other issue, aside from that, audio-wise, is that when you first attach everything and you fire the game up, the volume is very low. It's like a third, maybe, of what it was originally. And the adapter cards for the boards have 2 little sound pots on them that you can adjust to get the levels all the same amongst the various games. Excuse me. But the problem with that is that even at max, even at if you crank those pots to the max, you still have a much quieter game. And so what ends up happening is you have to go and adjust the volume on the audio amps. There's one per each monitor on these Nintendo monitors. And you really have to crank that up in order to get the levels to where they were. And you end up with extra hum coming out of the speakers just because of how loud they're cranked up. And then with those 2 pots on those adapter cards, even when as soon as you start turning them even like 3/4 of the way, the audio gets distorted. So you really have to crank those amps up, and I don't like that. To me, it's like an unhealthy level. So the audio's got issues. I don't like the volume being so low, and I don't like the big reason is I don't like the channels being mixed together. So that was a real bummer, and I confirmed this with Vector Labs, and they did say yes, the audio channels are combined. So that's a big bummer. That's kind of a deal breaker for me. So that's the problem with the Vector Labs one. You heard the problem with the RiddleTV switcher. Now, I sent off the RiddleTV. Now, the guy's name's Jim Riddle, and he makes the other switcher, and his customer service is great too. Both these guys have top-notch customer service. So I send the RiddleTV switcher off, and he replaces it, builds me a new one, sends it back to me, and it's still having the same issue, same exact issue. So at this point, I don't have a switcher that works 100% with this game. And so for the time being, until a new solution or a different solution presents itself, I'm just going to manually switch between the boards. It's a bummer, but I would much rather have good audio, good video than, and be a pain in the ass to switch between games rather than having a switcher that I can easily switch between the games, but I'm not getting a quality product. I'm not getting a good video signal. I'm not getting great audio. It's a trade-off. So I don't want it to be that way. So until a new solution comes, I'm just going to live with it like this. So I know it's not really a resolution, but it's going to have to be that way for now, because I just like playing this game, and I don't want an indefinite project that has, you know, who knows when I'm going to finish it. So I don't like that. Anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed these videos. I'm glad to put a closure to this project. I'm really happy with the way this game turned out. I love the laminate, everything about it. I'm just excited about. And now I can finally really start playing this game, going for high scores, trying to beat my personal best, which reminds me, instead of doing, I usually would do a video on the gameplay and like kind of like an introduction, a tutorial, so to speak. And I would post that as a separate video. But I thought for something fun to do, since I haven't done a live stream in a very long time, and now that I've got this all ready to go, I think what I'm going to do is probably sometime next week. I don't know which day yet. I'll post it on my YouTube channel. I'm going to do a live stream where I will go over how the game works, like basically a live tutorial. And so if people have questions or whatnot, they can ask them then. So I'll do Punch Out, and then I'll go to Super Punch Out and kind of explain all the little subtleties and stuff. It might get pretty advanced, but it should be a lot of fun. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me in this long escapade. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Happy holidays.